Good evening. I'd like to call to order the regularly scheduled meeting of the Jefferson County Board of Education on Tuesday, January 16th. And do we have anybody to lead us in the pledge this evening?
We have students from Shepherdstown Elementary School. We have Brinley Austin, and we have Aslan Jacobson.
All right. If you please join us.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Well done. Thank you very much. All right, and we have some business partner signings this evening.
Yes, Mr. Solter's going to be here this evening, but I'll be glad to pinch it, and Mr. Dickus is going to help me out. But first of all, I'd like to introduce Mr. Gary Wyatt, and I need to stand up.
And Leslie White.
And Leslie Wyatt. Boss. And the owners of the Lily Belly Cafe in
Lily Bell.
Lily Bell
Yes.
Cafe in Shepherdstown.
Yes.
And we signed a business partner here with Shepherdstown Middle School today.
Yes.
Do you want to tell us just a few words about your business? Get some
Yeah.
free advertising in here?
We just opened up on September 27th. It's an idea we've been working on for a couple of years. I just retired from teaching last June, 36 years coaching and teaching at the same school. And so we decided it'd be a time to kind of go for her dreams of owning a little cafe. And so we wanted to have a place that would be a friendly place for people to come and hang out. We do have internet. It's kind of an open place. We are working on iPads that we'll have available for people when they come in. We have basically it's a deli where we have fresh deli sandwiches, fresh sliced delis, old-fashioned deli sandwiches. We have South Mountain ice cream. We have Black Dog coffee, as well as cold brew and nitro brew. We also have, our main thing was to have a fresh, healthy meal, and it's acai bowls. I don't know if you're familiar with those. It's kind of like a super berry from Brazil. And you have that. It's kind of like a sorbet with granola and fresh fruit and nuts on top. So you can have it for breakfast or a snack or lunch. We've been doing very well. I have a lot of people now. We have our regulars and stuff that come in. We actually have people call and order to come pick it up. So I guess we're doing okay. And as you guys know, especially Shepherdstown is pretty slow in the winter and also goes slow with the weather. So today was not a great day.
Where are you located?
We're right downtown on German Street, right across from
Big Marble.
yeah, there it is. In between Maria's Taquerito and the popcorn shop.
We can eat well in Shepherdstown. Right?
Yes.
And the name of it was?
Lily Bell Cafe.
Lily Bell?
Yeah, Lily Bell, yeah. And the name is from, actually, my wife's name is Leslie, and when she was little, lived in Atlanta, and her dad nicknamed her, was Lily Bell was her name, was her nickname. And so he just recently passed away, and he loved to go out to eat and enjoyed food, so we thought that was a great name for it. I'm looking forward to, I already missed teaching a little bit, but looking forward to, being in partnership with Shepherdstown, the middle school, and doing things with them, inviting them over to come in and visit with us or give them a place to come hang out. I've already had the football players this fall coming in and joining me a little bit and stuff. Had some of the art students come by. I was an art teacher and science teacher, and some of them have come by and I've kind of questioned them on their art and everything. We're hoping to do as much as we can with them, open our doors to the middle school. We would like to have a fundraiser type thing, if you're allowed to do that here. I don't know if you are, where a certain percentage of our sales in the evening would go to middle school and things like that. Any questions?
I heard somebody say that, and somebody asked us about that, and I think that's a great idea, an art display,
Oh, yes.
having
yes,
an art
definitely.
display, yeah.
If you can't tell, we are all very excited to welcome them to Shepherdstown and to our schools, and I think we'll have a wonderful, beneficial relationship with our students and community. So welcome, and thank you.
Thank you.
Very much.
If you could come up here and sign the certificates.
You guys have a seat at the table and stay on that.
Yeah, oh, yes, you heard that?
Mark's from Shepherd's.
Okay, yeah, we have hot cider.
We stopped down on She's probably really.
And actually, we have our woman that works in the county, she works for the county schools in one of the cafeterias. She does, her grandfather was a candy maker, so she does little candy canes and does cookies and stuff at our place, so.
Come join us. You can walk there and burn off the calories. Park in our parking lot.
It's probably
Yes, sir.
I just was going to say, before we started all this, as far as the restaurant goes, Gary said to me, somehow we have to stay involved with, the kids, because that was his passion and his love, and so I think this really means a lot. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Dingus will give the press dollars for a second to fill out a little information sheet.
Thank you.
Thank
Come
you.
see us.
Thank you, sir. Another business partner, which we're always real proud, we have the chief of the Shepherdstown Police Department here, Officer King.
Yes.
Appreciate you very much. I think even without a formal partnership, we all appreciate the partnership we have with our local law enforcement agencies, and I know Shepherdstown is a very
Unique place.
Yes, it is. Thank you very much. I'm not going to say any more. You pretty me very well. But Mr. Jacobson, if you'd like to, you guys can sit down at the table.
Mike
too.
and I, we talked starting this fall about a partnership between both the school and the police department. It was a logical partnership between the two. Because our kids have actually gone over there and they've actually done demonstrations for our kids, but they're so close at the first time, and a lot of times, even though we're technically in Jefferson County, they're generally the first ones on the scene as well. And they pledge their support in a variety of different activities and anything they can do, and vice versa. I think it's just a perfect partnership between the two. So,
I can't see why it wasn't done before.
yeah.
And you mentioning that they're always the first one on the scene, it's really nice the way all of our, units out here work together.
We couldn't get it done alone. It's just like with the community, you can't do it by yourself. We need
But it's
each other.
appreciated. So.
All right. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Dingus is also, if you all can fill out another form there, okay? I'll let you take care of that. Have that completed.
Just a second.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you, guys.
They'll leave you in there. See how fast you get that one.
On Aslan's athleticism, or actually, I do. The board and the public may have seen that the West Virginia Board of Education voted last Wednesday on some changes to Policy 2510. It had gone out to public comment. We sent out to our staff and to the board. When it was in public comment period, we as an administrative team submitted public comments. As it was adopted just last Wednesday, we are still working with the West Virginia Department of Education to get feedback on implementation. Policy, sits here, and then how it ends up playing out at the local level is sometimes a matter of close questioning of the people who decide whether or not you did it correctly or incorrectly. Some of the major changes that I think people will be most interested in and that are going to require action on our part are, number one, the change to the 10-point grading scale. Beginning next school year, 2018-19, it will be a requirement that incoming freshmen for high school be on the 10-point grading scale. We certainly believe and recommend that it's in our best interest for our teaching staff that all of our students be on the same grading scale. It's to have any inconsistencies would be frustrating and time-consuming for them. And we are working both with the West Virginia Department of Education and with Live Grades, which is the purveyor of our electronic grading system, to ensure that we're ready when the new year starts and the teachers are prepared so that when they're putting things in, it's automatically calculating those for them. The other changes that folks will notice is also beginning with that incoming class. The number of graduation credit requirements has been reduced. They did not change the content requirements in terms of, there was some original discussion about reducing the amount of social studies credits required. That did not make it into the final vote. They changed the overall number of credit requirements from 24 to 22, but that reduction was in the elective area, not in social studies. And there was also some changes passed to the physical education portion. There is now the option of integrated physical education, which is an interesting amalgamation of you participate in some sort of physical activity in another class, like I am in marching band or I am in show choir. We already use ROTC for those purposes, but that course would count as the physical portion of your requirement, but you would also have to take an online PE course simultaneous to that to be able to get the PE credit. So we're making some inquiries from the State Department. We've gotten some feedback on different options for the board, and we'll be bringing those back to you. Where local options exist, we'll be bringing information back to the board about a recommended course of action and complying with that policy moving forward.
And hopefully local options do exist.
Fingers
crossed.
That's exactly what we've been told, limited so far, because they're getting bombarded, of course, with people making inquiries, and they've in the few instances where they've been able to give us some specificity, they've said, this is exactly what the policy requires, and it's the direction's been given to us that if it doesn't limit you, you're to allow the localities to address this as they see fit. So like with the integrated PE requirements, we're being told, hey, we put it out there as an option because you requested it, but if you want to keep everything exactly as it is right now, you can. If you want to expand options, you can, as long as you do it within these parameters. So I think they're making a sincere effort, although it can feel very messy sometimes. Being very dictatorial is pretty clean. Thou shalt do this. And I think that they are legitimately trying to give more local control, and sometimes it just feels chaotic because the system hasn't always been set up that way. So it's, well, at minimum you have to do this and then go from there.
So hopefully the minimum is incoming freshmen are on the 10-point grading scale, but we have the ability to make everybody else on the 10-point grading scale, because otherwise if we have a freshman and a junior in the same art class, they both get a 92, one gets an A and one gets a B.
So that's definitely, that is our understanding at this point. We haven't received any information to the contrary. Dr. Payne, the state superintendent, has summoned a meeting of all county superintendents next week in Morgantown. And a portion of that meeting is purposed to ask any questions that you have about this. We'll have the folks there from those departments to give you some guidance on any additional questions, things that are shaking out. We wanted to give you a week, sit with it, talk to your staff locally, and then we'll come back and help you put together a plan. So
my whole thought would be too, if the policy specifically states that starting with incoming freshmen next year, that would be a 10-point grading system, blah, blah, blah. But if it doesn't anywhere in the policy say thou shalt not change anybody else's grades immediately, therefore, I would say that was wide open.
Right, and that's the interpretation thus far. That's exactly what's
they're
been
saying.
given to us thus far, is that it will be mandated starting 18-19 for freshmen coming in. Like most systems and the few other superintendents that I've spoken with across the board, they are like, we cannot manage two separate grading systems. Almost all of us of any size use electronic grading systems, and they're not set. They're set up in very particular ways where it would be very difficult, time-consuming for us to run two different grading scales. And I don't see that happening. I see us converting everyone over in 18-19.
And when you say everyone, we can also convert the middle school to keep it consistent
Yes.
with the elementary, middle, and high
We
school.
certainly
We'd all
can.
be on the 10-point grading scale. Okay.
Yes, ma'am. So there will be some interesting nuances with archive grades and things like that. What's in the past is in the past. If you got a 92 this year and it was a B in 18-19, we're not going to go back and change your B into an A.
Right.
Okay, so that people don't accept that. That's not on the table. We're just talking about everything 18-19 going forward is on a 10-point grading scale.
Anything else?
I had the Jefferson County African American clergy had a lovely Martin Luther King breakfast yesterday, which I know a couple of you attended, and raised a significant amount of money for scholarships, which are given to Jefferson, Berkeley, and Morgan students. And several of our students have benefited from that. So it's through their generosity has helped give many scholarships to our students, and we greatly appreciate them continuing that tradition this year.
Well, I know my daughter came home with a packet about this thick of different scholarships that are offered by different organizations locally in the community, and it's pretty impressive how our community supports kids to get to school. So, all right. Approval of minutes. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes for the December 11th board meeting?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And no citizens' comments this evening? All right, the consent agenda.
You will note there are two changes on the consent agenda, both driven by the cancellation and an extra week of consideration. One, a resignation that was rescinded, and another one who in that time we've managed to offer another position because things change so quickly at the transportation department.
Is there a motion on the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Unfinished business. Review of Chapter 8.
Remember we had Chapter 8 put out several weeks ago, said we'd leave it out. We thought we might have to leave it out a second period of time. So this is our first go-around to review the comments of the chapter. So I forwarded comments before. I want to just make reference to those comments, and then in our second or two, we'll touch base with this little yellow piece of paper. It'll make sense to you what I have added to you there. I'll try to walk you through this slowly. So the comments we received, they were all, for the most part, related to the attendance portion, attendance and homeless. We did get some edits from one of our business teachers at Washington High School that graciously read this through with a fine-tooth comb and just gave us some suggestions, and totally appreciated that. We did those. I wanted to address one of her comments on this piece of paper that you have that is with your, it's a front and back you have with you on there. If you would look, what the person recommends, we combine sections 7 and 8, which is on page 7 of your in the policy manual itself. If you look through, the recommendation was to combine excused student absences and required documentation. So the yellow portion you have is what it would look like if this was combined. Now you can find these once again in the policy, in the big policy manual you have on pages 7 and 8 in the And there's a couple things by combining them is the reader doesn't have to flip back and forth to see, okay, here's the excused absence, what's the documentation, well, let me flip, okay, here's this, so you're not having to flip back and forth. And then it also prevents us from duplicating the same information. All of these parts are mentioned twice in the existing policy. We have it here right now, and this was just a comment from one of our employees. Just thought it was more reader-friendly to go that way. All the same information is there. What it does do is delete the repetition of the stuff that's written on 2 pages, the identical things written twice, once where it's describing it, and then it's also then the documentation that's required. That's something I certainly want to gain the board's input on. And I don't know if you want to discuss that or want me to just review over the other recommendations at this point, the comments we received, that I can touch on the other comments. The other comments were related to the attendance policy, the homeless section of the attendance policy. Many of them we have addressed. We had a comment about concerns about how the perfect attendance was written and described in the policy, and that was corrected. It was a typo. It was corrected as far as what perfect attendance is, and that's on page 5 of the policy. It was fixed on page 5 of the policy. You can see it, I think, down on the bottom of the page there. We have the perfect and the faithful attendance on the bottom of page 5 there. And let's see, we had another comment as far as documentation that's required, as far as relating to student absences. That's on page 7, and that was corrected. We took language verbatim right out of what the state code says. It's the highlighted part down the bottom there. That was taken straight out of on the bottom page 7, right out of how the state code. So that was a correction made. And the other concerns then were related to the homeless, as far as if we're properly informing people in the community about our homeless services and their rights as homeless individuals, that we're required to do all means possible to notify the public about homeless and provisions for the homeless folks. So our existing policy had the whole state part of the homeless part in the policy, exactly from the state. It was taken out and put in our policy, and what we have here is a lot more streamed down as far as homeless isn't addressed so much in our policy as far as the information for sharing their parents. That we have pamphlets go out to the community that, in the community's places that talk about the homeless, and we have the homeless right from the state policy in our handbook, our school handbook. It goes home to every parent. But what it does eliminate one avenue of parents looking up in the policy to see how homeless is addressed. And the current thinking is that we try to address that through the newsletter, or the handbook goes home and the flyers in the public. And beginning the school year, we asked all parents to verify that their addresses, if it's changed at all, to make any corrections, and then that should trigger a red flag to our principals also if they see, oh, there's changes of address here, so that's a red flag to say, do we want to check and see maybe this became a homeless situation, this family's address changed because they had to double up somewhere or something. But that was, like I say, you can see our comments came from that way. We did have a federal audit, I believe it was last year, or was this year. It wasn't an audit. What was that we had? Can you explain what that was, Mr. Epperson?
No, it's just in our preparation of the documentation for the federal budget, the Title I budget, which includes the dollars for homelessness. They just asked for a more elaborated narrative this year. There was no audit, and also in the strategic plan we were asked as well to include additional information related to our different action steps that involve our efforts to communicate with homeless families. There was no audit.
Okay, thank you. I'm glad you're here just so I can make reference and
sort of
get that.
administrative questions.
Thank you.
So, can I ask a question real quick?
Sure.
Based on that, do we think it would be, I guess I'm trying to figure out, if we need to have it as understanding and as I guess, as much of a plethora of knowledge as possible? Or what were they saying that, what is the pros and cons of putting it in the policy, if you will, even though it's really just instruction, or not having pieces of it? Just clarify that for me as far as what we left in, what we took out. Does it?
I think the idea was that, I tried to compare it to some of our other, I think of policy 2510, chapter 7 for instruction. We just renewed that over the summer, adapted that, but we didn't take the whole policy 2510 and say, here's Jefferson County Schools policy. We looked at the policy and we applied it to Jefferson County Schools as how we implement those things. And same way I think Ms. Fitzwater probably with policy 2419 governing special education, that you use that. It's not in our handbook, but you use that as a guide. The whole policy is not within our handbook. So I think it's a matter the idea was we were trying to make our manual a little bit more condensed, and other than just duplicating what they say the same, is trying to bring it down in a little more condensed fashion. We had it with our legal counsel, reviewed it, and it was instrumental in helping with the rewrite of it.
How does that help? I guess my only thoughts would be, I know, whether it's a student with tardiness or a student with homelessness, how does it best affect us if it ends up being more so with tardiness and whatnot, but like a court issue? Like, how do we defend ourselves the best? Like, what if we're providing the most amount of information? Does that better us in the end because we're more protected that it was available to them? Does it, I guess that would be my question. I just want to make sure that whatever we have in here is correct, and I was reading through it as well. There was a lot of duplications as well. I kind of went through and redlined a bunch of stuff myself on pages, just trying to think, oh my gosh, if I was actually looking something up in here. I'm reading this 5 different times, 5 different ways. And so I get that you want to make it more succinct. That makes total sense to me. But I just want to make sure as it's written, do we have what we need, where we need it, that it's reader-friendly, it's usable, and it does meet the guidelines of that recommendation that Mr. Ebersol said. Have Dr. Hoff look at it, that obviously as an attendance director, she's the one that has to go stand before a judge to say yes or no, this is that. So I think she should sign off on it, on those pieces that everybody is affected by, to be sure that they absolutely sign off on what is in there. To me would be important before we say, yep, that
see
looks
what's
good.
Missing from what's missing is
that would be my recommendation. I'd like to know that everybody who has their hand in whatever their scope of practice would be within our system, that they've looked at it and they're comfortable knowing that that defends them, depending on whatever their case may be. That would be my thought.
We originally said we would probably put this out more than once for reviews. I don't know if you want to have this amended document go out on review. It's a lot cleaner and easier to read than what's online right now because of all the strikeouts and things, and it might be easier for someone to critique a clean copy like you have in front of you to go through
I
it.
would personally like to go out on review again with the editorial. I appreciated the comments from Dr. Hoff and from Jackie Gore as well. And I think we do need to make those editorial changes. And I think we do need to work with Dr. Hoff and this being workable for her as well. And I think we need to make those adjustments and then put it back out, because there's no reason that I know of that we need to be in a rush on this.
None whatsoever. We're under no time constraints. We've just committed to working through the policy at this
Right.
pace to try to get it.
And this is one of our
manageable.
biggest policies, and I think we need to get it right, and so I think we need to put it back out with those editorial.
What is the board's feeling as far as combining those chapters 7 and 8 to put it, so we're not doing the duplication of, the yellow paper you have in front of you? That's everything.
Yeah, I mean, once again, I think that, as short and as concise as we can have it is best. I'm kind of like Laurie, when you read this thing, you're kind of looking back and saying, well, I just read that in another way somewhere else.
Yeah, so sometimes when I do that, then I have to go back and say, well, is this the same thing, or is this a separate section?
Is it
And-
actually the same
Yeah, it
thing?
was
takes a
very
couple
difficult to edit. I had
times.
to get a whole table to set it out and see, I'm reading the same thing over
Right.
and over, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's where maybe, that input will help, because again, we know what we're looking for, sitting on this side, you know what you're looking for. Dr. Hoff will know what she needs to see. Lee may have an idea too of what he needs to see from the Title I perspective, working with Sherry. So however that needs to be, I think, to put it back on again and say, okay, whether it's, if we combine this, how does that, now tell me what else I have to add or how this measures up. Or if I do this, or if it's a section 7 that says specifically attendance and homeless period, and it's all succinct, however it needs to come out so that it makes sense, it flows, it doesn't say the same thing, but everything we need is in there. I think we can do that. We just need to take some more time to do it, so.
And we can certainly put out both the red line version, which folks are used to, some folks like, so they make sure they're not missing anything, as well as, to your point, the edited version that says, based on the feedback that we have so far and the proposals, this is what the end game would look like. Tell me if there's anything based off of this that you want to see, so that we're covering our bases with everyone. And we have plenty of time now. I will say your next meeting is only a week from now because of the delay. Our next meeting is the 22nd. So do you want us to bring it back to you on the 22nd, or do you want us to bring it back to the beginning of February meeting?
I would prefer the beginning of February.
Okay.
Yeah, me too.
I wanted to make sure that we knew that. 'cause
It would
we-
not make sense to try to bring it back that quickly.
I didn't think so, but I wanted to make sure we understood your wishes.
So do we have a motion
I
to
make
put
a
it back
motion to put it back out on review and to bring it back at the first meeting in February.
Second.
out? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Miss Fitzwater, it's you.
Actually, it's not.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm so loath to contradict you publicly, Mr. Skinner.
Checked off the first one and I checked off the wrong one.
No, but you're right, we did have
All right.
back-to-back policies, that was confusing,
Okay,
sorry.
that's okay.
This next policy is the introduction of a policy and a request to put it out for public comment. And this is actually in our human resources section, which is coming up for review in the coming year. But it's something that we wanted to have addressed before our recruiting season started. In essence, it affects our 261-day employees in that currently, when we are attempting to recruit individuals from outside of the system to take positions in the county, our policy currently states that we will not provide an employee with service credit for any work that they've done previously unless it was in an accredited private or public school system. In essence, what that means is if you are Bill Gates and you come to work for us as our IT director, you can only receive credit for 0 years of service experience, and you will start with 5 days of vacation, period. You could have been in the industry for 30 years, be at the top of the pay scale, but you can only have 5 days of vacation. If you are one of our 261 custodians and you owned your own cleaning service and company and won awards for service and came in highly rated, doesn't matter. If it wasn't for a public school, you get nothing. You start off at 0. And as competitive as the market is today for us to recruit employees here, and the fact that this is not mandated by the state. This was a local policy that our board chose. Now, we can certainly, and I suspect through public comment, we can certainly work on giving additional credit to people from public school or public school service if you want to favor that in some way. But to forbid us to give any consideration to any type of job experience that was anywhere except in a public school is really constraining to our abilities. So we would like to put this out for public comment, get some feedback. I don't believe we'll bring it back on the 22nd. That just makes no sense. We have too little time. We'll come back on February 1st to give you any public comment that we have and then seek feedback from folks.
Who will be making the determination on, yes, we're going to accept yours, and no, we're not going to accept yours?
The same folks who do now, which is our Human Resources and Finance Department. Right now it's easy. Was it in a public school, yes or no? If it didn't happen in a public school, too bad, and you're out. Public school or an accredited private school. So for us, and my advisement would be, and we can work through this with the policy, is if it's related to the position that we're hiring you for. If we're hiring you as a custodian and you worked as a custodian or repairman in a previous business, I say we can give you credit for that. It's a limited pool of people. We have fewer and fewer 261 positions. A lot of our 261, when we made all the cuts at central office, we cut a lot of 261 down to 240s. But for the positions that are at that level, it's really hard to recruit someone and say, you have all these wonderful experiences, that's why we want you, that's what makes you valuable, but by the way, you can't have any vacation.
And I agree with you, and I like that, but I think we're creating a gray area.
We are.
And I'm a bit concerned about that.
So we can certainly, that's a great point. We'd be happy to create a committee or, private industry and other school systems do this all the time. I can certainly survey around, because not everyone, like I said, this is a local policy. Other counties don't do this. I can ask them what guidelines they have in place to ensure that they're being fair and consistent when they're looking at people's history. So I can bring that back, some ideas for sort of the SOP, which the standard operating procedures that we would use to make the policy work. Thank you.
Yeah, I think that'd be good, and given the chance to, maybe some of our own folks too would have some good ideas if we put it out for feedback on what we might or might not want to add to that to make it fair and equitable for everybody.
Certainly could, because we've, it's something that's limited us in the past, and we are working to, the last time this was put out was in 2013, and the employees that we've hired since then who've been constrained under this policy, I think that whatever we come up with, we need to apply to them out of fairness, and I think that we need to also work with folks moving forward to be able to, recruit and bring folks in and be able to grow our system. We are struggling with both recruitment and not quite as much with retention, but retirement. We have an aging workforce, and we are beaten streets to be able to get qualified folks in. We're maintaining our standards, but it's taking a longer time. Mr. Jacobson, the principal who was in here earlier, it took us 5 months and 3 rounds of interviews, and it gets harder and harder for us to do that. And were we to bring someone in who had enormous experience in curriculum writing and supervision, and created their own curriculum or textbook company and run it and lectured at university, 0 years of experience is what we could give them under this policy. And it's just, it makes no sense to constrain ourselves that way.
So do we have a motion to put policy 261, day employees vacation, out for public comment?
So moved.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Now, Ms. Fitzwater.
This is a continuance from an October 9th meeting that we had. We had approved a long-term sub till the end of the first semester, And I have included and uploaded to you the data that has been taken and where we're at, and hopefully the plan, which seems to be taking a little longer. And at this time, we would like to just extend it till the end of the year. With our plan of action, we're actually going to meet at this point again as a team in April to see where we are and whether we have to take other steps.
So are you proposing an extension of the long-term sub?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
So
Do you have a
moved.
motion? Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am.
And thank you very much to your staff and the sheer volume of data that they track to make these decisions less subjective, which is nice.
All right. Action on approval of the 2018 retirement incentives.
All right, good evening. This is also a follow-up to the board's previous action relative to providing $500 retirement incentive bonus to teachers here in Jefferson County for early retirement if they give us notification of such ahead of time. According to West Virginia Code 18A-2-2 G sub paragraph 1, there is a $500 state bonus for early notification of retirement, and we're proposing this year, as we have done in the past, that we offer the same incentive to our service personnel for early retirement notification as well. And so therefore tonight we're seeking your approval to provide that one-time bonus incentive for service personnel in addition to teachers.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
That definitely helps in your planning purposes, I assume.
It does, very much so.
And I think it is greatly appreciated from the service personnel that they are equally valued in terms of our long-term planning and in terms of our gratitude for their long service to the county. So.
Absolutely. All right. Item D, action on approval for information technology system administrator.
This is one of the many steps that we will continue to take as RESA 8 unravels and reconstitutes itself as EPIC. One of the positions in our school system, information technology system administrator, we were basically funneling money through RESA 8. We paid RESA 8, and then RESA 8 turned around, hired the system administrator, and paid them, but they were housed entirely in our county. They worked for no one but us. We simply, because of some state mandates, had to pay through RESA to get this individual. Now that we've voted and formed EPIC, and as we work through those services, RESA 8 no longer exists. While they continued to exist, had paid this individual's contract through the second quarter, the fiscal quarter that ends in March. So as of April 1, we will have to assume this person as an employee of Jefferson County Schools, whereas they were previously an employee of RESA. So it's no change to our budget whatsoever. It's the exact same amount of money we were paying RESA, and then RESA was paying him, minus the administrative charges for RESA. So now we're just creating a position for this person to become our direct employee.
Does it have the same responsibilities that they had when it was a recent employee?
Yes, sir. Thank you. That's a good question. It's the exact same responsibilities.
And it's the same number of people we've had working, it's just the money's...
Yes, sir. It's the exact same number of people, it's the exact same, it's just their head count was in RESA 8, and now their head count needs to be under our auspices. And then by law, we create no positions without the approval of this board. So in theory, we're creating a position, but one's going away at RESA that we're paying for, because they don't cease to exist.
All right. So do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second? All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Possible executive session.
We will be having an executive session on land.
And will we have action?
Yes, ma'am. I anticipate so when we come back into.
All right. Thank you very much.